Hi, and welcome to Drupal Brief. This is an AI-generated brief of another video, podcast, or blog post. If you want to learn more about what's being discussed here, then please go check out the source. This podcast is produced by the team at Drupal Forge. We would love to create more AI-generated briefs like this. Please contact Salim Lakhani on Drupal Slack or LinkedIn and let him know what else you want us to cover. Oh, and if you have not tried Drupal Forge yet, you're missing out. You'll be able to do twice as much in half the time. So go check it out. Okay, that's it. Make sure to click subscribe. And here we go.
Hey everyone, welcome back to the Deep Dive. We know you come here because you want to get right to the heart of things, learn quickly, and move on with your day.
That's right, no fluff here.
Exactly. And today we're taking a deep dive into a couple pretty interesting topics straight from the folks over at Talkin' Drupal, #492.
Yeah, we thought their conversation about the Pantheon Content Publisher and the QR code fields module for Drupal was really insightful.
Totally. So we're going to unpack those for you today. We're talking Pantheon Content Publisher. We're talking QR codes in Drupal. Might sound like two totally separate worlds, but our mission today is to bridge that gap and help you understand what these tools are, how they work, and most importantly, why you should care.
It's all about staying ahead of the curve, right?
Right, without getting bogged down in all the technical details.
Efficiency is key.
So let's just dive right in. Starting with Pantheon Content Publisher, what's the main idea behind it?
Well, John Money from Pantheon described it as a SaaS solution. That's software as a service.
Okay, so
Yeah, and he said it's specifically designed to smooth out content production workflows. He even compared it to a content integration service.
interesting, like taking all the different parts of content creation and bringing them together.
Exactly. And he actually framed it as like the next generation of headless content management.
Headless. Hold on, we hear that term thrown around a lot. For our listeners who might not be super familiar, could you break down what headless means practically?
Sure. Imagine you've got a car. You've got the engine, which makes it go, and you've got the body, which is what you see.
Okay, got it.
In the content world, the engine is where you manage and create your content. That could be a CMS like Drupal or WordPress or even something else. And the body is where that content is displayed, your website or an app, whatever. Headless means those two things are separated.
Ah, I see. So you're saying your content can exist in one place and then be sent out to lots of different places to be displayed in lots of different ways.
Exactly.
Got it. So how does Pantheon Content Publisher fit into this whole decoupled setup?
Yeah. Well, John talked about creating a many-to-many relationship for content. So right now, they're really focusing on content that originates in Google Docs.
Google Docs, okay.
Yeah. And then from there, it can be sent out to, Drupal, WordPress, Next.js, all those platforms.
Right, makes sense.
But their long-term goal is even bigger. They want to include things like Notion and even Microsoft Office 365 as potential content sources.
Wow, so like all roads lead to Pantheon.
Yeah, you could say that. They want to be that central hub, making sure your content flows smoothly no matter where it comes from or where it needs to go.
Makes sense. It's like a central command for your content.
Yeah.
But why go through the trouble of creating something like this? What problem are they trying to solve?
Well, a lot of content teams struggle with inefficient workflows. People love working in Google Docs because it's so collaborative.
Oh, absolutely. It's easy to use and everyone's already familiar with it.
Right, but then they have to take that content and somehow get it into their CMS to publish it on the web. And that whole process can be a real pain.
Oh, I know that feeling. Like trying to fit a square peg into a round hole. So the idea is to let people stay in their comfort zone, keep using Google Docs.
Exactly. They want content creators to keep using the tools they're already comfortable with without having to learn a whole new system.
Right, I get that. No need to disrupt the creative flow and probably saves a lot of time and headaches.
For sure. And it gets rid of that whole copy and paste nightmare between Google Docs and Drupal, which, is just asking for errors.
Oh, tell me about it. I can't count how many times I've messed up formatting or missed a paragraph doing that.
It's the worst.
So walk me through this. Let's say I'm running a blog post in Google Docs and I want to get it onto my Drupal site using this content publisher.
Yeah.
How does that actually work?
Okay, so first you set up what's called a collection within Pantheon Content Publisher. This is basically where you group related content. Like you might have a collection for all your blog posts, another one for your news articles, and so on.
Makes sense. Keep things organized.
Right. And this setup involves connecting Content Publisher to your Google workspace.
So like a one-time setup to link the two systems.
Yeah, exactly. Then when your content creators are working in Google Docs, there's a Pantheon add-on they can use.
An add-on, okay.
Yep. It's optional, so you can choose which documents you want to connect. And here's the cool part. As you're writing in your Google Doc, the add-on gives you a live preview of how it'll look on your Drupal site.
Ooh, a live preview. That's handy.
It's super helpful. You can see exactly how your formatting, images, everything will look on the actual site.
That's a huge time saver. No more guessing or going back and forth to check.
Right. Once you're happy with the preview, you just hit publish,
Yeah.
and that triggers a workflow within Pantheon.
Workflow.
Yeah, it's where you add all the important stuff for the web. Meta tags for SEO, categories, taxonomy terms, even featured images.
Right, so it's not just dumping the raw content into Drupal. It's getting all dressed up for the web, so to speak.
Exactly. All that content with the metadata you've added gets delivered to Drupal through something called a GraphQL endpoint.
GraphQL endpoint. Sounds technical.
It is a bit, but think of it like this. GraphQL lets Drupal ask for exactly the content it needs. Nothing more, nothing less. It's super efficient.
Got it. So it's like a very specific request system.
Yep. And on the Drupal side, they're using the Views module to handle all this.
Views. Now, for our listeners who might not be Drupal experts, Views is this really powerful tool in Drupal for displaying content in all sorts of ways. So why Views in this case?
Well, it gives Drupal site builders a ton of flexibility. They can take that content from Content Publisher and show it in lists, teasers, full pages, however they want, without having to mess with the basic structure of their Drupal site.
So it's like a seamless integration.
Precisely. Views can query that GraphQL endpoint and pull in exactly what it needs to display.
Okay, that's pretty slick. But what if I want to include some information in my blog post that's not a standard Google Docs field? Like, let's say, a specific author bio or something.
Content Publisher lets you create custom metadata fields for your collections. So if you need to track a specific author bio, you can create a field for that.
Custom fields. I like it.
Right. And that custom data is also available through the GraphQL endpoint, meaning your Drupal views can be set up to pull it in and display it right alongside your content.
So it's super flexible.
It is.
All right, so the editing happens in Google Docs. That's the source of truth. If I make a change in Google Docs, what happens on the Drupal side?
Google Docs is where all the content updates happen. You make your changes, you republish the document using the Pantheon add-on, and those changes are automatically reflected on your Drupal site.
It's all synced up. Nice.
Keep in mind, this works great for text-based content.
Sure.
But what about like images or more complex layouts, the kind of things you might usually build directly in a CMS?
Yeah, that's a good point. How does that work?
That's where smart components come in. They leverage Google Docs smart chips, those little interactive things you can embed in a document.
Oh, yeah, smart chips.
Right. So you can use them to insert things like hero sections with images and calls to action, or even marketing forms right within your Google Doc.
Interesting. And what do those smart chips translate to on the Drupal side?
They map to what are called single directory components, or SDCs, in Drupal.
Okay, SDCs.
Basically, these are reusable building blocks for your website. Drupal defines what those components are, what fields they have, how they're structured, and all that.
Right, so it's not just random chaos.
Exactly. And those Drupal-defined components become available as smart chips in Google Docs. So your content editor can just insert a hero unit, smart chip, fill in the fields, and when it's published, that data is used to render the actual hero unit on the Drupal site.
Wow. So it's like having pre-built Lego pieces that you can just snap into your content?
That's a great analogy.
It's maintaining structure while still being flexible, right?
Absolutely.
So who do you think would benefit most from using Pantheon Content Publisher?
Well, anyone who prefers working in Google Docs over a CMS would find it useful.
Sure, Google Docs diehards?
Exactly. Also, organizations with lots of content creators, especially those who might not be trained on the CMS, this would be a godsend for them.
Makes sense. No need to train everyone on a whole new system.
Right. And if you've got a complex content workflow with lots of steps, Content Publisher can really help automate things and make the whole process more efficient.
Streamlining things, less room for error.
Yeah, exactly. And Pantheon is actually using it themselves for their internal documentation and communications, so they clearly believe in it.
That's a good sign. But are there any situations where using Content Publisher wouldn't be a good idea?
Definitely. John mentioned that if you're building highly designed landing pages, the ones that need pixel-perfect layouts, you're probably better off using a tool like Figma.
Right, so not for super visual, design-heavy stuff.
Yeah. Also, for content that needs to be updated constantly, like real-time data or something like that, Content Publisher might not be the best fit.
Okay. So more for things that are published and then stay relatively static.
Yeah. And finally, for really complex content structures like an e-commerce product catalog where everything's interconnected, you're probably better off using Drupal directly.
Right, because Google Docs isn't really built to handle those kind of relationships.
Exactly.
Okay. Now, I'm curious about the tech behind all this. When I publish a Google Doc to Drupal, what's actually happening?
Well, under the hood, the content from the Google Doc is first converted into Markdown.
Markdown.
Yeah, it's a lightweight markup language. It's pretty standard, and it helps make sure the content is formatted consistently. Then that Markdown is stored probably in Google's Firestore database.
Firestore, got it.
And the whole system relies on that Google Workspace add-on and the core Pantheon Content Cloud platform.
Okay, so it's all integrated pretty tightly.
Oh, yeah. And just to be clear, the Drupal module and the WordPress plugin that connect to the system are both open source.
Open source, good to know.
Yeah.
But I'm guessing converting a Google Doc with all its potential formatting quirks into clean Markdown can't be easy, right?
You're telling me. John even admitted that getting Google Docs to play nicely with Markdown is a real challenge.
Right, because Google Docs lets you do all sorts of crazy things with formatting.
Exactly. So there's definitely some sophisticated engineering going on behind the scenes to make sure everything works smoothly.
Okay, that makes sense. We can't talk about tech these days without talking about AI. So how does Content Publisher use AI?
It has an optional AI integration powered by Vertex AI, which is Google's AI platform.
Okay, Vertex AI.
And users can choose to turn it on or off. The important thing is that it's pluggable, so organizations can potentially use their own AI models if they want to.
Ah, so it's customizable. That's cool.
Yeah, it is. But by default, the AI can do things like suggest summaries of your content, write alt text for images, and recommend tags for categorization.
So like an AI assistant helping you get your content ready to go.
Exactly. And John was very clear that these are just suggestions. Human editors always have the final say.
Right, so the AI isn't taking over. It's just there to help.
Precisely. And they're planning to add AI integration to other content sources beyond Google Docs in the future.
So expanding its capabilities. Now, what about managing the content flow? Can you create workflows or schedule things to be published later?
Those features are in development right now.
Ah, so not quite there yet.
No, but they're on the roadmap. John actually pointed people to their public documentation to see the latest updates on their roadmap.
Cool, so transparency. Now, John used a phrase that I thought was interesting. He said, safely publish. What do you think he meant by that?
I think it means a few things. It probably includes stuff like content governance.
Governance.
Yeah, making sure the right people have permission to publish certain content.
Right, so it's not just anyone can publish anything.
Exactly. And also making sure the content looks the same across different platforms, you know, even though Google Docs and a web page format things differently.
So consistency and control.
Yeah, that's the idea.
Okay, I'm sold on the concept, but how technical do I need to be to set this up with my Drupal site?
John said that initially you would need a Drupal developer to do the setup.
Ah, okay.
Yeah. They'd need to configure the Drupal views to pull in the content from Content Publisher correctly and maybe customize some templates to make everything look right. But once that's done, it's pretty user-friendly for site builders and content teams.
So a developer to lay the groundwork, then things become much easier for everyone else.
Yep, that's the gist of it.
Can you use Content Publisher with existing Drupal sites, or is it only for new projects?
It works with both. You can use it for existing sites or new ones. John even talked about the possibility of migrating content from Drupal back into Google Docs and then managing it through Content Publisher.
Interesting. So you could sort of reverse the flow. What if I have different types of content on my site, like a blog and a knowledge base?
No problem. You can have multiple collections within Pantheon Content Publisher. So you'd have one collection for your blog posts and another one for your knowledge base articles.
Okay, so it can handle multiple streams of content.
Exactly. And you can set different metadata and settings for each collection.
That's great. So it's pretty versatile.
It is. Right now, it's a one-to-one relationship between a Google Doc and a collection, but they're working on making it possible to have one document belong to multiple collections in the future.
That would be even more flexible. We've been talking a lot about Google Docs, but is that the only way to get content into Content Publisher?
Not at all. They've got something called an ingest API.
Ingest API, okay.
What that means is content can come from other sources besides Google Docs. You could use AI content generation tools or even potentially Google Sheets to push content into the system through the API.
So lots of possibilities for integration.
Yeah, they're trying to keep things open and flexible.
All right, last but not least, the big question. How much does this all cost?
It's currently in beta, so it's free to use.
Sweet. Free is always good.
But they will eventually have a subscription model. They haven't announced pricing details yet, though.
Okay, so stay tuned for that.
Yeah.
And when can we expect it to be publicly available?
They're aiming for sometime in the second half of this year, but, timelines can always change.
Sure, things happen. It sounds like they're planning on making this a core part of the Pantheon platform.
Yeah.
Just one more quick question about Content Publisher. Do they have any integration with translation services for multilingual content?
Not at this time.
Okay.
But John did say it's something they're considering for the future, as a way to make it easier to manage translations before publishing.
That would be really helpful. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground with Pantheon Content Publisher.
Yeah.
Let's switch gears now and talk about something totally different, but still really practical.
Sounds good.
Martin from the Talking Drupal episode talked about a Drupal module called QR code fields.
Right, I remember that.
So what's the deal with QR code fields? What does it do?
Well, it lets you create and display different types of QR codes on your Drupal site. It was created back in November 2023, and it's still being actively maintained.
That's good, actively maintained.
Yeah, they've got versions for Drupal 10 and 11. And as of that episode, there were no reported bugs in the issue queue.
So it sounds pretty stable.
Yeah, it seems to be.
So is it just a generic QR code generator, or can you create different types?
It's not generic at all. They've got 9 different field types in Drupal, each one specifically for a different kind of QR code.
9 different types.
Okay, like what?
Well, you can create QR codes for URLs, vCards, meCards, events, all sorts of things.
Wait, vCards and meCards? What are those?
So a vCard is basically a digital business card. It holds all your contact information.
Uh-huh.
And a meCard is like a simplified version of that, optimized for mobile scanning.
Ah, okay. So you can create a QR code that, when scanned, will add someone's contact info to your phone.
Exactly. And with the events QR code, you can include things like the event summary, description, location, dates, and times.
That's cool. So when you scan it, it gives you all the event details.
Exactly.
So how does this all work in Drupal? How do you actually create these QR codes? Well, each field type has its own set of input fields that are specific to that type.
Okay.
So if you choose a URL QR code field, all you need to enter is the URL. If you choose a vCard field, it'll ask for things like name, phone number, email, and so on.
So it's pretty intuitive.
It is. And to make it even easier to display these QR codes on your site, they have custom block plugins for each field type.
Oh, block plugins. That's nice.
Yeah, so you can just drop a block for a URL QR code or a vCard QR code into any region on your site using the regular block layout interface.
Mm-hmm.
And for developers who want more control, there's a service they can use to generate the QR code images programmatically.
Ah, so you've got options. But what's the technology behind this? How are those QR codes actually generated?
Well, this is where it gets a bit tricky. They're currently using the Google Charts API to generate the QR code images.
The Google Charts API, isn't that deprecated?
It is, unfortunately.
Ah, so that could be a problem.
Yeah, it means it's not being actively maintained anymore. So there's a chance it could stop working at some point.
That's not great.
And, it also means that when you generate a QR code using this module, the data you're encoding is being sent to Google servers.
Right, because they're the ones generating the image. So there are some privacy concerns there, especially if you're encoding sensitive information.
Exactly. Like, they have a QR code type for Wi-Fi credentials, but you might not want to use that if you're worried about Google having access to your Wi-Fi password.
That's a good point. Are there any other Drupal modules that generate QR codes without using Google's API?
That was actually a question that came up during the Talking Drupal episode. They encouraged listeners to suggest alternatives.
So maybe someone in the community will step up and create a new module.
Yeah, hopefully.
Aside from Drupal modules, are there other ways to create QR codes for your website?
Oh, definitely. A lot of modern browsers, like Chrome, have built-in QR code generators. You can just right-click on a page and generate a QR code for the URL.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that.
Yeah, it's really handy. And there are command line tools and PHP libraries you can use if you need more control.
Okay, so lots of options out there. I've seen some QR codes that are really stylish, with different colors or even a logo in the middle. Can you do that kind of customization with the QR code fields module?
Unfortunately, not right now. It's pretty basic in terms of styling.
So just black and white for now.
Yeah, but it's definitely something they could add in the future.
Hopefully they'll consider that. So basically it's more about functionality than aesthetics at this point.
Pretty much. But it does a good job of letting you integrate QR codes into your Drupal site.
All right. So we've talked about the Pantheon Content Publisher and the QR code fields module. What are the key takeaways here?
I think the big thing is that content creation is changing. We're moving away from these rigid, CMS-centric workflows.
Right, becoming more flexible, more adaptable.
Exactly. Content Publisher really embraces that, letting people use the tools they're already comfortable with. And QR code fields is a great example of how we can make our content more interactive and engaging.
I totally agree.
Mhm.
I think the most exciting thing about Content Publisher is that it gives non-technical people an easy way to contribute to a Drupal site.
Totally. It removes that barrier to entry.
And with QR code fields, it's just so versatile. You can use it for so many different things.
It really is.
So for our listeners who are busy and want to get the most out of their time, what's the one thing they should take away from this?
I'd say the future of content is about finding ways to work smarter, not harder.
Couldn't agree more. And these two tools, Pantheon Content Publisher and QR code fields, are great examples of that.
I think so too.
All right, that's it for our deep dive today. We hope you found this informative and helpful.
And thought-provoking.
Absolutely. As always, if you have any questions or want to explore these topics further, we encourage you to do your own research.
The original Talking Drupal #492 episode would be a great place to start if you want to hear the full conversation.
Thanks for joining us. We'll catch you next time on the deep dive.
See you then.
All right. What did you think? Did the AI-generated thing work for you? Let us know. Anyway, to close off this podcast, I just wanted to remind you that this brief was a fully AI-generated summary, and we take no credit for the original content. If you want more AI-generated summaries like this, then let us know. Contact Salim Lakhani on Drupal Slack or LinkedIn. By the way, we're automating the entire process from start to finish, so these briefs can be generated hands-free and on schedule. You want something else covered? We're happy to do it for you. This brief was brought to you by Drupal Forge. Drupal Forge is the new #1 platform to try, demo, and develop Drupal sites, and it is completely free to use. It is a community-supported nonprofit platform run by volunteers, just like yourself. Come join us.